Welcome to the Jefferson Business Journal. Today we're going to profile the Jefferson Area Business Center. Hi, I'm Jim Klug, and we have Steve Lewis, the owner of the Jefferson Area Business Center, with us today. Glad to have you with us.
Jim, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, how you got started here in Jefferson.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I'm actually a Hawkeye. I graduated from the University of Iowa, and I was part of that Back to the Land movement back in the early 70s. And I came to Wisconsin. I bought 40 acres. I actually lived in a log cabin for 10 years. I came to the southern part of the state in the 80s, and in 1992 I purchased the old Borg Textile building. And it's really hard to differentiate that building from really the fabric of this city. Mm-hmm. Some parts of the building are over 100 years old. Back in 1911, and it was always a textile mill. Started out as a woolen mill, and then Borg Textile turned it into an artificial fur company. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it and purchased it because I had some other ideas. I was starting another business, and I currently had a company called Winter Woods that needed some warehousing in this part of the state. Mm-hmm. So I looked at it. Actually, a local realtor, Chris Nash, said, "Steve, I know you're only looking for 15,000 or 20,000 square feet. This building is 135,000 square feet. Much more than I needed." Mm-hmm. But he said because it was built in different sections that it could be divided off and rented out to smaller companies, and that's exactly what we did.
Mm-hmm. I think if you drive by on Wisconsin Drive, you don't realize how big that building is.
Right, yeah. On Wisconsin Drive, because it's two levels. Mm-hmm. The first level actually overlooks the river, and the second floor is 420 feet along Wisconsin Drive. Mm-hmm.
Tell us why Jefferson is a good location for you.
Well, the obvious thing is its location between Madison and Milwaukee, the two largest metropolitan areas in the state. We have the interstates area. But I think anyone really has to assess why it's good for them. And it's a good partnership for Steve Lewis because I grew up in a small town, mm-hmm. 600 people, went to college in a little larger town, and I still have a background, though. I have relatives and things in Chicago. So 7,500 people just seem to be a perfect mix for me. It's a great city to do business in. The business climate has really changed a lot, I feel, in the last 10 years. The city has really opened for creative business ideas.
So you now have a Jefferson location and a Helensville location as well, or?
Right. 6 years ago, we purchased the old Universal Electronics building in Helensville. They actually expanded. They built an 80,000 square foot building in Whitewater. Not only did they need more space, but they wanted to tap the university market for part-time people to work. So we've also converted that building into a multi-tenant facility in Helensville.
What services do you provide for the people at your Jefferson location here?
Well, we really have two aspects to that. We have manufacturers, so what we can supply them are the forklifts, material handling, loading docks, and we have that where they do not have to invest in their own forklift. A forklift, even used, could easily be $8,000 to $10,000. Mm-hmm. So what they do, they just rent it for the time they need it. And why that's important is that allows them to be sustainable. If you start a business and you have to buy your own $10,000 copier, your $10,000 forklift and material handling and pallet jacks and everything, you kind of dig yourself a hole to begin with. You have a lot of debt structure. And so this way, by sharing it all, it gives them a chance to be sustainable in those first 2 or 3 critical years.
The building's changed a little bit since you've been there. Going on the Wisconsin Drive area there, you have a new front over there. You have some construction going on back by the Riverwalk there. Tell us a little bit about what that's.
Probably 8 or 9 years ago, I really noticed a trend. I mean, it doesn't take a crystal ball for any of us to see that our country isn't as strong in manufacturing as it used to be. And Jefferson is just really a microcosm of our entire economy in the country. And I was always able to rent out office space, but I was having less and less young entrepreneurs come to me and say, boy, Steve, I need 5,000 square feet. I want to try this new manufacturing, or I want to build cabinets and things. That really slowed up for me. So with that in mind, I started to convert more of the building to offices. And these are offices that would house people that provide services. So there's really a change that way. And the change on Wisconsin Drive, that new entrance at 222 Wisconsin Drive, is really a visible effect of that.
Tell us a little bit how you feel the Jefferson Business Center fits with the city's redevelopment and the Riverwalk down there. I think the Riverwalk is going to be something really nice when it gets finished.
It really is. And without a doubt, a lot of people in town would say one of the worst things that ever happened to us was a 2008 flood, and it was devastating. I mean, 2 feet above the highest level that was ever recorded in history. But in essence, it's really, we're coming out of it with really a lot of improvements. And our building is one of the results of that. I was lucky enough to have flood insurance. And the flood insurance took care of me cleaning it up. And the government, I wasn't aware of this. My premium went to the Hartford Insurance Company. I said, well, they're the people that take care of it. But once that devastating flood came, it's not news to anyone, the federal government really came in and took care of everything. And the mitigation, or what we're doing over there, a lot of the remodeling is the mitigation. And that means we're going to raise our building so it doesn't flood again. And one of the few times I agree with the federal government and their wisdom, they're saying, hey, we'll pay you to get that building out of the floodplain, so every few years or whatever, we don't have to come in and take care of the insurance and the cleanup. So that's what we're doing, and the Riverwalk is part of that. The building right to our north, Ed Saleska, is creating, I hope, a destination restaurant. It's just going to be beautiful. And that's going to be tying in the footbridge, the new performance shelter in Rotary Park. And it's really tying, Main Street to what I like to call the new West Bank of Jefferson. And I think the improvements fit together just perfectly, almost seamlessly. A dream of mine and Andy Didion is that someday we actually have a bridge over to the island that's in the river. Family could come on a Sunday and have a picnic, and it'd be a whole loop. They'd be able to walk the river walk, buy some ice cream, have a picnic, and then walk back through Rotary Park.
Outstanding. Tell us how the business center has become self-sustaining and creating its own energy. I think that's a
Thanks. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really proud of. You really need to step back one level of thought before that, and what we did was really assess our consumption of energy in the building. And a question I give a lot of tours to young people, and one of the questions I like to ask them is like, what's the best electron, And they'll go, oh, it's an electron made from the sun, or it's an electron from wind generator. And I said, no, the best electron is the one you don't have to use. It's absolutely the best electron. Kind of a trick question, but it gets a point across. And that's what we did. We looked at our building, and what I did, I took a building built in 1911 through the 1950s, when energy was really cheap. We didn't know it at the time, but it was cheap. And they did not think a lot about insulating the building or windows that were energy efficient and lighting. They didn't take that into consideration. So I really had a lot of low-hanging fruit that I looked at it and I'm saying, wow, I can change these lights and put T8s in and save over half of it. In fact, real quickly, my energy bill is less now than it was in the early 90s because of a lot of things we did. One of the biggest things, and it seems so small, is that I changed all my exit lighting. We had over 30 exit lights. And that doesn't sound like much because, well, how much can they burn? But each one of them had two 14-watt lights in it. You have to have two in case one burns out, and there's always an exit light. So that's 28 watts, and it's 28 watts burning 24/7, and I had over 30 of them. And it was a huge amount of energy that just kept burning day in and day out that we were using. And we changed all our exit lights to LED. Really saved us a lot. And then on the passive side of it, we had an architect develop these, they're called light spines, and they're unique even in Chicago or Milwaukee or Madison. Our particular light spine is 60 feet long and 7 feet wide, and it brings in natural light deep into the building. So our tenants don't have to have their lights on. And then the lights that we do have ballasts that can sense the brightness of the light in the room, and perhaps when it does get a little darker, only one bulb will come on rather than two automatically. So we made a lot of changes that way. The atrium that we're really proud of, besides the 4 skylights, the skylights are actually lined with mirrors. So we actually get a passive reflection at no extra cost, you know, to bring in more light into the building. The insulation that I mentioned, we now have an R64 in the roof. And that's hardly uses any energy. In fact, you know, what does it mean to my tenant is that they just pay rent. We take care of all the utilities. So we're really proud of that.
We're going to take a break here. Stay with us, Steve. We'll be back with you in just a little bit. We're going to take a tour of the Jefferson Area Business Center and be back with you in just a moment.
I chose solar power. It's a little more expensive on the front end, but one of the reasons I chose it is that I went to a seminar on wind generation. And the man was there, and he was actually talking about job creation and how these huge wind generators have over 700 parts. That'll create more jobs because they'll have to replace it. This solar system, it runs when the sun hits the surface, it excites the electrons and makes them start flowing. The only moving part is our meter going backwards. Otherwise, it just sits up there. The sun hits it, starts moving, and they flow. I mean, they're not pushed with a pump or anything, they just flow. And the only moving part is that. So I looked for 50 years on that without any maintenance. This wall used to go straight through. But in order to let more light in for offices, we created a little plaza. This actually is a handicapped entrance, so it's very easy for people to park and get in with wheelchairs. And what it does, it lets in light into all these offices on the side. And this is called a light spine. This particular one is 7.5 feet wide and 60 feet long. And it's unique even in larger cities. You don't see a lot of it. And architecturally what it does, it allows all these offices in here to really have daylighting. And the more daylighting you can have, the less lighting that you have to have. So one of the first things we did, we changed the lighting. When I bought this building, it was owned by a company called Borg Textile. And they enjoyed maybe the 50s, 60s, 70s. The energy was pretty inexpensive. And they didn't think much about the lighting. So what we did, we changed them to high efficiency T8 lighting. All the exit lights we changed to LED lighting. Now that doesn't sound like much, but the old ones had 2 light bulbs in them about as big as my finger, and each one was 28 watts. And 28 watts doesn't sound like much, but in a building this size, I think we had over 20 exit lights. And each one had 28 and 28 was 56 watts burning 24/7. And you did the math on it, and all of a sudden that was a big number. Even if I didn't have a tenant, you know, I was paying hundreds of dollars just to have the exit lights on. So that's one of the things we did. And we did a complete assessment of the building on how to save money before we really put in the photovoltaic cells. We're really happy with this. A lot of offices don't have to have lights on it for a while. And the lights that we do put in, they're on motion sensors, so they don't come on until you go into a room. And I believe, you know, architecturally, if you're going to have an office space, you want it to be interesting and somewhat fun for the people to work in. A lot of the colors that you see, that's a water feature. All of the elements of that water feature were taken from the old Borg Textile plant. Big yellow pipe came out of the steam room. That red fan going around was actually a fan for a stationary motor. It's kind of a whimsical touch, and you know, it's more enjoyable for people that come and work here. And you can see this whole area is right now all natural light. The atrium area has 4 big skylights in it. And the skylights, I mean, are fairly common, not unique. But we did something that I think is really special. We chose to line the skylights with mirrors. It's just a passive way to get more light. Otherwise, they're at angles. The only time that you get direct sunlight is when, you know, maybe for the 2-hour period they're in there. But by this, you can extend it. It'll reflect off there. So sometimes during the day, you'll get direct light and then reflective light. But it almost doubles it passively without adding any expense. Because we make a lot of our electricity because of the quality of the material we used in here, we don't have a lot of maintenance costs. Because of the lighting, the efficiency of it, our tenants do not pay for any utilities. Our utility bills now are less than they were in the 90s when I first bought it, just through taking those steps. And that makes really a huge difference in a business. That makes me sustainable. And the fans that you'll notice, each one is an individual. We could have went out to Menards and bought, in this case, 7 individual fans, but each one would have its own motor, its own little vibration, its own little personality to deal with. Here we have 2 motors. They're actually 220 motors, which make them more efficient. And they run, this particular motor runs 4 fans. And they're each connected by their leather belts. And they run real quietly, they don't vibrate, and they just run all the time. This you can feel when you walk, it's a little soft, and it's soft because there's actually 4 inches of very dense insulation. All our electricity that we make, we sell back onto the grid. It is not consumed with us. And that's kind of strictly a business decision on my part. We're supposed to make like 23,000 kilowatts a year. We've been actually making 28,000. And I'm 3 years into this. So far it's been perfect. 2 more years and the system really will be paid for. So it's kind of a win-win.
Back again with Steve Lewis from the Jefferson Area Business Center. And what are some of the features of your center as far as creating your own energy, Steve?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. One of the things that you would have noticed on the tour, and the largest thing, and we sure get a lot of buzz on it, we have 99 photovoltaic cells up on our building. And we create a lot of energy, and a lot of people say, wow, do you create more than you need, or does it take care of all your energy use? And actually in our system, we sell it all back. So people that want to buy green energy have that opportunity. We were lucky when we were interested in doing this. It was at a perfect time. WPPI, that supplies Jefferson Utilities with their energy, they were looking to partner with small companies like myself to become sustainable. And they're doing that because there was a mandate out by 2025. They're supposed to have 25% of their energy has to come from sustainable sources. And that could be hydroelectric, wind, solar in our case, or even ethanol, biofuels. So we told them we're interested in doing that. We would like, we have a great roof and we would really like to participate in it. So we signed a contract with them. We had to guarantee them that we would produce so much energy over the next 10 years. But the advantage for me is that they paid me up front for that 10 years of electricity. So what we do, we generate it, we sell it all back on the grid. And the solar systems are wonderful. I would really advocate people buying them. I know wind is pretty popular and you seem to get more bang for the buck. But you have to look at the long term, and that's the maintenance of this equipment. A wind generator has a lot of moving parts and they're up there 200 or 300 feet. Our panels are right on our roof, real accessible. And so far the only maintenance is really cleaning them off in our Wisconsin winters. And we normally only have to do that 2 or 3 times a year. And the only moving part on this whole system is the meter going backwards when we sell it back online. So we're really proud of that. And we were able to take advantage of all the different things that the government had to offer. And one of them is giving you a tax credit. And we're fortunate enough that we're profitable and we're able to apply that against our federal tax. So it really was an incentive to do it. And 3 years ago when we put ours in, Focus on Energy was really active in this. And they offered a rebate, much like your rebate if you would put a blanket around your hot water heater. They gave us a rebate for putting up solar energy. So we're really happy with it. We'd recommend it to anyone. It's wonderful. And that's what our government is looking for. They're looking for thousands of people like myself, small businesses, willing to put these energy sources online rather than have huge nuclear power plants and coal-fired generators anymore in the future.
You've got a big excuse me. You've got a big building over there.
Yeah.
How many tenants do you have in there, and who are some of your tenants?
Wow, yeah, we do. It's 130,000 square feet. That actually is getting smaller. And I'm going to have to quit saying that in interviews because we took off the whole northeast corner of the building and put windows in it. So probably now we're down to maybe 110,000 square feet. Still big by, any measure, it equals 50 houses. And we have over 40 people that work in the building. We have a lot of different tenants. We have over 20 tenants. FedEx has an office there. We have the Jefferson County Literacy Council. We have LD Foods. It's a manufacturing of McDonald's fish sandwiches right here in town. We have a sport and spine medicine place. We have attorneys in there. We have business people. We have a massage therapist. We have a yoga instructor. We even have a person giving piano lessons. And what's interesting with that mix is that it's really softened. If you would have asked me, 10 years ago, I would say, oh, we have cabinet makers, which we still have. And we have a company that makes ventilation for greenhouses. And we have another company that makes lift chairs for senior citizens. But they're actually getting into the minority, the manufacturing. But they're still in there. And the south end of our building will always remain, small manufacturing.
Okay. What kind of features do you see developing here at the Jefferson Area Business Center? I mean, you've got so many things going on right now. Do you see any future development beyond what you're doing at the present time?
Yeah, I do. We're really looking forward to keep expanding. We believe in Jefferson. One of the reasons we mitigated, if you have a building that's in a floodplain, you're only allowed to make 50% of the value improvements. You can only spend 50% of the value on your improvements. And I've never quit rebuilding and rethinking and investing in that building, so I already came to that plateau, and I could not invest anymore unless this mitigation would take place. So in the future, our plans are more office space. Our dream is that we'd get a financial planner in, an insurance agent, a real estate person, perhaps a chiropractor. And that's going to be in an area that we're going to create a rotunda. It's going to be a 6-sided rotunda that's going to let natural light into the building, into both floors. Each side of this 6-sided will be 12 feet long, and like a spoke of a wheel, there'll be different offices coming off, and they'll all have the front end will all be natural light coming into them. And some of the other businesses, and I forgot to mention it before, we have 2 software engineers. They're actually embedded software engineers, and they can write programs. And I'm really proud of that. I mean, you can see a trend. I'm not saying we're Silicon Valley or anything, but it's neat to have those young people in there. And you never know what they'll create. You never know how many jobs they'll create. So I really think we're going to be on the cutting edge of the future going forward in Jefferson.
Looks like an exciting future for the Jefferson Area Business Center. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Our Jefferson Business Journal today featured Steve Lewis from the Jefferson Area Business Center.
Hello, I'm Dale Opperman, Mayor of the City of Jefferson. With me are Alderman Bill Brandel, he's the chairperson of the Jefferson Redevelopment Authority, and Tim Freitag, our city administrator and the executive director of the Jefferson Redevelopment Authority. The 3 of us are the main point of contact for all economic development activity in the city of Jefferson.
The Jefferson Redevelopment Authority was created in 2007 to assist the city with economic development and to foster business success. The Redevelopment Authority is composed of 7 members, 5 citizen or business members, and 2 alderperson representatives. The city administrator serves as the executive director of the authority. The Redevelopment Authority assumes a leading role when it comes to business relocation, business expansion, and business retention. It's also involved in revitalizing the Rock and Crawfish River waterfronts, as well as the community's historic central business district. The RDA has developed a number of programs to further and enhance the economic vitality and progress of the community. With the assistance of the Jefferson Chamber of Commerce and the Jefferson County Economic Development Consortium, the RDA plays a pivotal role in the community's business expansion and economic well-being.
Today, over 300 businesses employing 4,000 people are located in the city of Jefferson. Jefferson is home to everything from small family-owned and operated businesses to large international companies. This diversity provides an ideal variety that strengthens its robust industrial and commercial base. Additionally, both new and old are fused together here, as some of Jefferson's earliest industrial and manufacturing companies are still in operation today. Under various names, Tyson, established in 1879, and Nestle Purina Pet Care, established in 1910, are among the city's oldest operating businesses. A dedicated trained workforce, a strategic location near major arterial highways and access to railroad, plus a strong, diverse economic foundation characterized by commercial, industrial, and agricultural businesses have all made Jefferson a distinct site for business relocation and expansion.
The diversity of our business base provides a strong foundation for the quality of life which we enjoy in Jefferson.